Hello, mentors, and welcome to meeting 6, deductions, and that's going to be February 22nd. It's important to, remember we don't have a coaching, unfortunately, but there's Tuesdays, all hours, 11 to 12. So please go, this makeup coaching, and it's a very good 1 hour session with some of our LAs where you can practice, especially part 1, which is detective work. So let's look at the details to this part. Detective work, let's solve a logical puzzle together and let's reflect about the process that we used and our beliefs. This is a follow-up thematically to last meeting, meeting 5, where you did these professions, the pilot, right, and the teacher, etc., from the point of view of counting. Now this is the point of view of logical puzzle, so it will fit in a nice, cool way. And then after the break, we'll keep playing Othello or maybe other games, depending on your room and your, leaders, what they choose. So you don't really need to prepare this part because you already know how to play Othello. And if there's new games, you just, you'll just get to know them along with your students and be able to play, which in particular is kind of fun and interesting because you don't know the games as well. So you're at the same level of your students. So that can be a bonding excuse in the sense that you're not teaching the game, you're just learning with them, right, as friends. So have a lot of fun in this second part. Let's look at the goal. So in this meeting, we continue our discussion and analyze stereotypes through logical puzzles now. So focus still on possibilities and different worlds. So keep all that you talk about the worlds and all the possibilities, stereotypes, bring them again from meeting 5, but now it's not about counting possibilities, but using logic to narrow down options. So, okay, we already saw that stereotypes are not necessarily the best, but we still need to narrow things down. So the big message, I would say, it's logic comes into play. Instead of judging and having preconceptions, we can actually use logic, discussions, etc., to make decisions, narrow that options, and make it into a more fair game instead of just preconception. So you can bring this into the meeting, not just at the beginning, but during all the meeting. There's a big emphasis on students taking ownership on representing information. So that's also going to be key. Last week, you guys did a good job with trees, representing information using trees, especially trees. Now it's going to be all about the tables, the logic tables, and some graphs. We'll see all about that. So detective work, students solve a logical puzzle closely related to the context and the content in the last meeting, and mentors will keep discussing stereotypes now in a much more explicit way. Now that many students have had many experiences, now you can actually make it a little more in-depth or systematic, discussing many different cases. We'll practice how to, when and how to move on. So all about time management, and also pay attention, of course, to last week's show it in various ways. Still big emphasis on representation. So that's going to be about 45 minutes, and then we'll play some games. Some tips, time management tips, which are key into this meeting. In part 1, you may do some simple clues with more guidance. There's a lot of clues, so you may do first maybe 1 or 2 just to speed up the puzzle, depending on your students. Of course, some students may be able to solve it in time, but some others maybe just need this little push, and that saves you sometimes. Also practice more than one way to solve the puzzle. In the solution and the videos, we include ways to solve it, but try to practice other in different clues, the order of the clues or different reasonings. That way you can anticipate students thinking more and react fast, because it kind of already happened in your mind, or when you were practicing with your commentor. When the meeting comes, you're already kind of prepared to react fast in an efficient way, not lecturing, but asking the questions, right? Which questions to ask, which prompts to make, what works and what doesn't work. If you have tried many different ways to solve the puzzle, then it's going to be faster. So that's a really good key for time management. Practice the meeting a lot, right? Practice different ways, different paths. Then you're just automatically prepared when time comes. So we were talking about the goals from the framework, and it's all about logistics, know when and how to move on. Of course, in the meeting reports, you guys have told us your experiences with time management. We've asked some questions also in coaching, and this is a good spotlight meeting for practicing and try to be really polished in time management. So just practice some of the tips that you think may work, and see what happens. What works, what doesn't work, but be a bit more intentional about time management for this meeting. We have some tips here, so you can read them, and also some productive and unproductive beliefs. So detective work, let's talk a little bit. There's a video, especially on this part, in which Anna solves the puzzle, tells you a little, some tips about it. But anyways, let's just take a quick look. What's the breakdown? We start with a warm-up in which students complete a very short puzzle. Then we do the hard, the heavy puzzle, the main course, which is 30 minutes. And then we keep doing a reflection. And here, let me say a thing about reflection. In the past meeting, you already started or did some reflection about stereotypes. Some things may have worked better than others. Maybe not all students got to talk, or maybe your mentors wanted to mention something that you didn't. So this is a great opportunity to kind of tweak and adjust to the discussion, and keep doing the things that work, and maybe try new things to connect with your students more, to make them talk a little more or share experiences. And so we'll be sharing some resources in Canvas about these sharing life experiences. What are the materials? Apart from the student workbook, we'll have the 10 clues in a bag. So you guys, mentors, will read the clues in time, and then some mini whiteboards as usual. Let's take a look at how these clues look. Let's take a look at the slides, what this puzzle is about. So these are conversations, which kind of make it fun into a role play. It's kind of playing Clue, right? This board game about finding this guilty guy or girl, and it's kind of similar. So there's a setting, there's a story, there's characters, who did it type of thing, but now it's about matching these people with the hobbies and the countries of origin, as well as the profession. So it's not a simple puzzle, but you'll have plenty of time. So it's, it allows for little advances, little progress, as well as big leaps where many things happen in a clue. So it's very rich in that sense. It's a lot of things going on. Allow for, as we were saying, if it's too complicated, you can solve one clue or maybe two for students, or almost for them, just to show how it looks, to solve a puzzle if you think it's needed. Otherwise, let them think a little bit. There's something called productive struggle, right? In which students are challenged at the right level of difficulty. So try to, don't ruin that moment for students. So one of the clues would be H, for example. I spoke with the carpenter lover, who is also a programmer. So that gives you a match. Oh, then it's not Sandra who you're talking about. So that gives you also some information about something that cannot be. And it's all about, okay, how do I represent all this complicated information? You see maps, sometimes we as teachers try to send the message that it's all simple, just follow the rules without thinking much, just learn this procedure, ABC, and then you'll be done. And don't worry about representing things, because we're always representing this or that way. So we just take out this ownership from students. Logic puzzles kind of go against that, and it's okay, there's this information, how are you going to make sense of it, represent it, how are you going to logically advance? You are more, it's more your responsibility as the problem solver to do that. Of course, we're going to teach how to little by little, with tables and with examples and models, but it's not the typical problem where you just need to do something without thinking. You have to actually think and make sense of all the information. This is given in words, so it's not as easy, right? Because maybe some kids may not be with reading may have some trouble or difficulty, that's another excellent teaching opportunity. So lots of things going on here. Let's take a look what we're supposed to do then. So after, let's look at the student workbook. So let me pull it out. Just a second. So I'm gonna open the student workbook. So for meeting 6, actually we may go here. And actually I have it here, sorry, in the slides. Let's open the student workbook and now see what we're gonna do. Oh, sorry, this is the wrong link. So let me just open, just give me a second to just open the actual student workbook. So while we open this workbook, it's important to follow up the theme, and hopefully there were, students remember this little game they played at the beginning where they were, supposed to fill out this table in a kind of random form. So hopefully they remember this, because there's gonna be still a part of this game in this meeting. So let's take a quick look now at meeting 6. So here's the first part, the warm-up, which is really 5 minutes or so. It's just a kind of introduction to, okay, what's a logic puzzle? And it involves some of your LAs. And it's a very simple puzzle, a logical puzzle. It has almost unique solutions, but not quite. So you can think a little bit about it. And then some follow-up questions. How did they travel? Do we need more clues? Which would you invent? So a little ownership there for students. And also just to connect to, to the logic puzzles. Okay, now we have the logical puzzle here. So this table, it's very simple because it's just the characters here. Meaning 5 would be this column here, just occupation. And students know already that there's a lot of, 120, right? Different ways to match this. So now it's okay, we're going to use logic and not stereotypes to match things, right? To find information. That's the big message. Use logic, not stereotypes, hopefully, right? But also hobbies and country of origin. So there's lots of choices. So this is in the workbook, and students can use this table, but they're probably going to be able to use other types of tables. This is going to be the summary, or the last way they can answer. So here they have some other place to record information. But let's then go to meeting 6, the teaching manual. So for the puzzle, it's important to read each clue at least twice. Mentors will be revealing. So you shuffle the clues, put them in a bag, and reveal up to 5 clues. We'll see why. Add a bit to the story. Remember 2.1, and to the vibe of the story, maybe some role play or things like that, just for fun, just to keep students more engaged. Discuss what the clue means, especially at the beginning, go slow, and then ask students to represent the clue. Okay, how are you going to record this? Maybe some students may miss some information that the clue was actually giving them, because some clues are really rich, in which you actually deduce lots of things. So there's several ways, writing a shortened version or more visual ways. So keep the clues face up. And then what you're going to do is stop up after the 5th clue has been shared, just to see how we are doing, kind of like a halftime thing. So this is one way to record directly on the table. And again, if you just say, do this big table, just do it like a robot, then students won't be learning much. Okay, so it's really important to understand that you're guiding, but in a very, very subtle manner about efficiency of representations, but they're making the choices. They should be making the choices on how to represent. Another idea is not just that there's one, the best way to represent information. Allow for some contrasts, some different ways to represent information, even if it's not the most efficient, but provide a lot of feedback during, or as students to give feedback to other students. So this directly on the table, it helps, but it does not cross-reference a lot, right? Occupation versus origin. If there's clues that are matching some occupations, such as the pilot, with some countries' origin, like Mexico or Germany, etc., it's not too easy to do it here because this is only characters versus each of these. So there's a lot of information that it's being, not recorded really in this simple table. But still, it's still the table. It's still, simple and some starting point. That's kind of the thing with representations, right? We can use many, and we're gonna decide which, during the process, sort of. So this extended table now has occupation and hobby. It has these characters here and the country of origin. So this is still limited, this table, because, for example, you cannot compare the name versus the origin. So maybe you would need to draw some arrows, like Kevin is from India, you would draw some arrows, so it gets a little messy, but it's a good way to, to keep going. You could have a more extended table, and you could imagine how it looks like, and we'll be providing some of these tables at some point, as, just as printouts. But I repeat the important idea of don't keep these printouts as worksheets at the beginning and say, just fill out. Instead, let them think a little bit about the necessity of extending the table. So the student workbook, on purpose, we are putting this limited table here. And students should realize and complain to you that I am not able to record all the information I need. So that's how the conversation may go. Then you would negotiate, okay, how would you do it? What would you need? And at some point, just for time's sake, of course, and because these tables are complicated, you would actually give the printouts to some of the students or all the students at some convenient moment, in which they now know why this table exists, the big table, right? Because then it's, it's more fulfilling, and there's like a click or an aha moment. So these are the clues. And so finishing the scoring, you check any students who guessed last meeting the correct solution. And this is just a hook to keep students more engaged. And in the puzzle, remember, 30 points if you guess the real match. If students forgot about it, don't worry much about it. You can eliminate this part, but it may be cool if some students actually bring the workbook from last meeting, or actually remember what their initial choices. Of course, you could also have them fill them out again before starting the clues, before starting this puzzle. Okay. So the reflection after the puzzle, very important. It's using these questions. What was it important or useful to come up with a system for collecting information in advance before the clues were given? And so they may say, yes, I regret not learning about this table before, but doesn't matter, right? The important, the goal is not to solve the puzzle, but to learn about being efficient, dealing with logical information. Did your way of recording change? How? Which ways to represent information did you find the most useful? So we have talked about how different representations are important, but it's also important to compare them, which is more useful in which context, which is less useful, etc. That's also part of the math learning experience. So it's not that I can do any representations at any point and it's all the same. Of course, we open the door like a toolbox, right? but some tools are better than others, and students should be the ones that figure that out and not you just tell them. Ownership, right? It's all about the ownership. What would you do differently if you were to solve a similar puzzle? Another interesting question. Which parts were the hardest and which skills did you develop during this activity? Okay. And so again, coming back to stereotypes and implicit biases, you can ask these type of questions. Did you hear comments from others that you think were based on automatically thinking that certain genders were not fit for certain occupations? And as things similar, again, just build on what you did in meeting 5. So I probably won't say much about it because each of you mentors may have had a different experience. So just adjust to that, right? It's also part of our cultural way of teaching that you learn from the meeting 5 and you adjust to similar to the next meeting because you know your students a little more, how they could react or not react so well. So I'll be very flexible in this part. We should just, you should just follow and adjust from your experience. So that's the idea of this puzzle. Of course, there's the solution here and just one way to solve it, in which we use these bars to connect, for example, that the person that stays at home also does yoga. So Clues gives that. Reading this may not be the best, just, at the beginning, but maybe solve the puzzle. And if you have some questions, technical details, maybe coming to this may help at some point. And again, this is just one of the many ways you could solve this puzzle, because this is using this order of clues: A, B, I, F, and then G, C, H, D. But since it's gonna be random, then of course it may be like it's different ways. You probably don't need all the clues to solve the puzzle. I think, for example, E in this particular solution sequence, I didn't use E. So there's some of them can be replaced by others and things like that. So it's not as long as all the 10 clues. You won't need all 10 necessarily. So it will actually depend. Let's look at the solution, how it looks like, just so that you are, it's here, the final solution. So you can, of course, you can keep a cheat sheet in during the meeting in which you have these solutions, just in case, and plan hopefully not to use it, but just to get lost in the puzzle with your students, which may be scary at first because you're not teaching or lecturing towards the solution, but you're more guiding. You're pretending that you don't know the solution and you're just building, and you will be learning new things and new ways. The more you can anticipate and solve this puzzle in different ways, then you'll be more comfortable. And you may get stuck in the puzzle, totally fine. I mean, hopefully you get stuck, even if it's for a few minutes or so. And hopefully students can help you and point out things. So it's a team experience in which we are all contributing. So kind of my advice, take the cheat sheet, but kind of try to forget about it and almost try not using it during the meeting. That would be the best. So this is meeting 6. Hope you have a lot of fun in the puzzle. And again, hit us on Slack or Canvas if you have any technical questions, especially since we have a holiday. You can just reach out on Monday or Tuesday or even Wednesday if you have any quick comments or questions about it. Have a lot of fun and see you next time.